In 2021, a streamer called Streaming in the Years created a new innovative online tournament for the classic game Age of Empires 2. 64 players from all over the world competed against each other to win a blender from 1975. For 1 week in May, players battled each other in a grueling test of their skills and abilities in one of the world's most beloved games. But one player stood out from all the others in the fledgling cup. One player did things no one had ever seen before. One player went all in. The Lawman. This is the story of the first Blender Cup. Age of Empires 2 is a real-time strategy game released by Microsoft in 1999. 20-something years later, it boasts a thriving online community with thousands of players and dozens of major annual tournaments. Streamer, Streaming in the Years, who is a streamer, created the first appliance-based Age of Empires tournament in 2021, and he called it the Blender Cup. He figured that players would prefer a kitchen appliance to cold hard cash, and boy was he right. 64 players immediately signed up for the tournament, including some of the biggest and most experienced players in the game like Fiddle Vlad, Jacob Chip, Of Flem and JP Does That. But there was one name in the tournament that nobody knew. The Lawman. He was an Irish player, relatively new, very inexperienced and completely unknown on the competitive scene. Rumours ran wild that the Lawman was a big player posing as a new player, but he was soon verified as just being another Irish noob eager to enter his first tournament. The Blender Cup runs for 1 week at the start of May. Players battle each other from the round of 64 all the way to the final. Every round up until the semi-final is a best of 3. This means that a player must win 2 games to reach the next stage in the tournament. The semi-finals and finals are a best of 5, so players must win at least 3 games in those rounds to beat their opponent. The first games kicked off on May 2nd, and immediately the unknown Lawman started to raise a few digital eyebrows. In the round of 64, the Lawman faced Tusky. Tusky was a veteran AoE player with over 9,000 games under his belt. Based on sheer experience alone, this would be a walk in the park for Tusky. Lawman would be knocked out in the first round, but maybe Lawman could pull it off. Stranger things have happened, like that time an asteroid hit me in the head and I woke up in the hospital 17 days later and I could see through walls. In game 1, Lawman picked the mighty Byzantines and Tusky went with the berry collecting, cheap castle making, tanky cavalry Franks. Tusky opened with a scout rush to play to the strengths of the French beefy calves, while Lawman produced spearmen to tackle the scouts and skirms to, well, we're not sure yet. But Lawman's spearmen fought off the scout attack and immediately counterattacked Tusky with skirms and spears. Tusky used his scouts and even some of his sexy villagers to defend against the attack. Note for editor, very important, please remove the word sexy. Tusky started producing skirms to help defend against the aggressive attack from Lawman and was eventually able to round up and clear the enemy invaders. Before Tusky has time to regroup, Lawman started knocking on his door with more reinforcements. Lawman's attack was relentless, and eventually he broke into Tusky's base with a mangonel closely on guard, or a mangonel if you can pronounce it properly. Tusky needed to flood the battlefield with knights as soon as possible so he could push the enemy back, but Lawman sensed this move was coming. Lawman was rushing Tusky's base with nearly 30 camels and 15 upgraded pikemen, which is an army composition also known as the Knightmare. Pronounce the K so you would get it. Again, Lawman broke down the walls and entered the base with pikemen and camels in tow. He focused his camels on the town centres while he cut down any villagers within his reach. Tusky fought to defend his homeland, but with more and more camels pouring in and so much damage being done, Tusky flew the white flag of the loser and Lawman took game 1. But winning 1 game in a best of 3 doesn't mean much. Doing it a second time is what really separates the men from the, is it squirrels? Game 2, 4 Lakes, Pond Nation. Tusky picked 4 Lakes as his home map for Game 2, a map with 4 ponds filled with delicious fish food that the players will try and control. To help him control it, Tusky picked Persians and Lawman chose Turks to take advantage of their scout cavalry's bonus pierce armor. Basically, they die more slowlier to arrow fire. Both players work quickly to get down their docks in the nearest pond. Tusky opened with scouts and sent them into Lawman's base to pick off any defenseless villagers. Lawman, adept at using the old Speararoo, dealt with Tusky's scouts, killing 2 of them before they could do any significant damage. In Tusky's base, Lawman harassed with his own scouts, but struggled to get the knockout blow. Ramping up his scout production, Lawman put down another stable and also invested into bloodlines, giving his scouts extra hit points for the battles ahead. Tusky defended the marauding scouts well, but with the scout numbers building, it was beginning to look like the beginning of the end. Tusky fortified his villagers behind a row of houses and a wood line acting as a natural wall. This could buy him enough time to mount a viable defence. Little did Tusky know that a broken heart would be his downfall. A villager by the name of Fred was secretly seeing a man who was part of Lawman's villagers. The generals of Tusky's army found out and forbid Fred from seeing Greg due to security concerns. In an act of defiance and love, Fred chopped through the wood line and let the scouts in to slaughter the unsuspecting villagers. As he was being laid down by the scouts, he shouted, "Call me Greg," but he was now dead. And so was Tusky's chance at going into the next round. Lawman took game 2 and headed into the round of 32, sending ripples of discontent throughout the tournament. Game 1 of the round of 32, Kempe versus Lawman, and it's on Arabia. Kempe picked the menacing Mongols while Lawman went with Britons and their powerful archers. Kempe raced the feudal age and unleashed a vicious scout attack on Lawman, the likes of which had not been seen since the Great Scout Rouge of 94. Lawman, now with a proven track record of his ability to defend with spears, did exactly that and kept Kempe from taking more villager kills on his woodlines. Back in Lawman's base, he prepped archers from 2 freshly laid archery ranges. He marched the archers forward and targeted Kempe's villagers on a vulnerable woodline. Kempe immediately made skirms to battle back the archers. He also moved some villagers to stone to build his castle that would produce the fanciest and most feared horseman in all of AoE, Mangudai. Lawman failed to push Kempe back and was eventually wiped out by the defending force of skirmishers. Capitalizing on his successful defense of his base, Kempe reached Castle Age before Lawman, giving him the advantage of better units, more advanced upgrades and fresher cornflakes. Kempe, sensing an incoming crossbow attack, upgraded his skirms to elite skirm archer killing machines and waited as 20 brand spanking new crossbows approached his base. The skirms held back the invaders, so Lawman rolled out 3 mangonels in the hopes of flattening the brave defenders and pressed forwards into Kempe's base. Just as Lawman was beginning to knock at the door of Kempe's town centre, Kempe sent his skirms and deadly Mangudai to clear the enemy raiders, forcing Lawman to retreat to the hills and regroup. Villagers charged forward with hammers and hundreds of feet of scaffolding and laid down a castle to secure the hill for Lawman's forward army. For now, done, done, done. Wait, that's meant to be a sound effect. I'm not meant to say it. Kempe, using the Mangudai's speed and attack, harasses Lawman's villagers in the back of his base, wreaking havoc on Lawman's eco. The first cracks of Lawman's plans start to show, and Kempe can smell blood. Lawman is forced to send his forward army back to his base to clear the skirms, and Mangudai now destroying him. To counter the growing number of skirms, Lawman constructs some stables in the back of his base, hoping to hide them from Kempe, but the enemy Mangudai are on them as soon as they start producing military units, delivering a huge blow to Lawman's war effort. But all is not lost for Lawman. He still has a large army of crossbows that will soon turn into the Charizard of archers in Imperial Age, Arbalests. The attack from Kempe doesn't let up. He reaches Imperial Age before Lawman and has 18 elite Mangudai smack bang wallop in the middle of Lawman's base. 40 Arbalests rolled through Kempe's base, picking off villagers, but when 20 skirms and a goat attack them, they know they are living on borrowed time. They are eventually trapped and taken out by skirms and unrelenting castle fire. To arf the deal, Kempe destroys Lawman's castles and uses hussars to cause untold damage in Lawman's base. A shaken Lawman concedes game 1 and maybe the tournament to follow. Game 2. Lawman picks Acropolis, which, for the record, is the only way I pronounce it, so just put up with it. On this map, each player has a little hill all to themselves, but they can't build anything on the slopes, and it's very tricky to wall everything off. At some point, each player will have to move out and to secure a fatter woodline. To really add some spice to this game, both players went as Turks, so expect some scouts. Actually, expect a lot of scouts, and that's exactly what they gave us. Back and forth scout attacks all the way up to Castle Age, with either player unable to break the deadlock and take the advantage. Hoping to get the jump on Lawman, Kempe switches to camels to tear those measly scouts from huge leg to huge leg. Unfortunately, Lawman's TC has a thing to say about those camels and mowed them down like grass. Yeah, grass works. Meanwhile, Lawman has been switching to the speedy and deadly cavalry archers. Kempe's camels regroup and continue to press their attack in Lawman's homeland, while on the other side of the map, Lawman tries to find a way in with his army. He eventually breaks in and uses his light scouts to take out villagers while his cavalry archers support from behind. And then the bravest villager I have ever seen just strolls 100 kilometers across the map and slaps down a town centre in Kempe's base. But Kempe has a little surprise waiting for the town centre when it's built, as his castle rains down fire from above. Lawman brings forward mangonels to take out the main town centre and does, but as soon as it goes down, Kempe builds another one in the shadow of the castle. He also diversifies his town centre portfolio and sets up shop all over the map. Lawman knows he needs to do something drastic to bring this town centre monster to his knees. He brings a huge force to the northern town centre where almost 25 villagers are standing with their blue shorts down. Kempe springs into action and begins building a castle, but it's destined to fall, and so are the villagers building it. There's no way back from this killer blow, and Lawman wins game 2 to keep his dream alive. It was all to play for in Game 3. Whoever wins goes into the next round and takes one step closer to putting the beautiful blender on their mantelpiece. Kempe employed the services of the siege-mad Celts, while Lawman went with one of his favourites, the mighty Byzantines. Wanting to gain an upper hand quickly, Kempe opens with a man-at-arms rush. Lawman responds with an archery range to get some archers out to deal with the unwelcome visitors. Lawman manages to deal with the initial man-at-arms, but Kempe isn't done yet. The man-at-arms keep on coming, wave after wave. In an attempt to stem the death flood, Lawman puts down a tower to protect his golden woodline, which rids his lands of the man-at-arms scourge. Scourge? In an attempt to disrupt the relentless attack, Lawman marches towards Kempe's base with a rugged band of archers and skirms. The all-seeing Kempe closely follows the army as it approaches his walls and attacks with his own gang of archers and skirms, forcing Lawman into a hasty retreat. The bells of death start to ring out as the crafty Kempe surrounds Lawman's base with towers, preventing him from accessing vital resources. But Lawman's courage knows no bounds, and he again attacks Kempe's base with more archers. Both in Castle Age now, Kempe picks off the Feudal Age troops before they can get their upgrades. Lawman has nowhere to go. Kempe's skirms move in for the kill on his remaining crossbows. Later that evening, I was sipping on my hot cup of Marmabix, a marmalade Weetabix broth and a closely guarded secret of the Dennises, when I received a phone call from Smith that there was another dropout. This time it was Ducky Ducky Doo Doo. I couldn't believe it. Smith explained that Ducky Ducky Doo Doo had to return home to Louisiana for her aunt's birthday, where there was a strict no internet policy, so she wouldn't be able to compete in the online tournament. Now, if you know Ducky Ducky Doo Doo like I do, she doesn't fall for anything or anyone, especially not her senile old aunt Deirdre with the huge arm. It made no sense. She just has one huge arm, like twice the size of her other arm. Smith hung up on the phone, eager to play a quick Black Forest game before bedtime, but I wasn't satisfied. Something was going on in the Blender Cup. Forces were at work, working with and against each other. As the old saying goes, if you follow the trail of breadcrumbs, you'll soon find the bread. So I did a little digging. You see, it turns out that Ducky Ducky Doo Doo, though not strictly a member of the Golden Alliance, a group of guardians committed to law and order in the AoE community, she was closely connected to them. And who were the greatest enemy of the Golden Alliance? That's right, the infamous Hobgoblins. Were these two factions meddling in the Blender Cup? Unfortunately, I had no time to dig any further. We needed a replacement and we needed it now. Following our tried and tested rules, we looked at the list of players with the highest elo who were knocked out in the previous round. I got to the top and, once again, I couldn't believe it. Lawman. He was going to get a second chance at the Blender Cup. Game 1, Arabia. Boomer chose the cavalry-obsessed Franks for the opening game of the round of 16. Lawman went as the bulletproof, infantry-toting, archery-rooting Vikings, a departure from Lawman's usual picks. Boomer opened with the tournament favourite Scouts, but he should have known at this stage that Lawman is the king of spears, so the Scouts wouldn't be alive for too long. Archers spilled out of Lawman's archery range and advanced towards Boomer's base, eventually knocking his villagers off gold in a colossal blow to Boomer's economy. Boomer, thinking quickly, slaps down the old reliable tower to reclaim his gold and protect his woodlines. Both players speed up the castle edge, where Lawman builds a forward siege workshop. It's not long before rams and mangonels come rattling out of the workshop. Lawman tries to take out Boomer's stables to stop his knight production, but the knights are on the rams before he knows what hit him. It was a knight, and knight hit him. The ram manages to take down the stable, but Boomer quickly builds another and puts the ram to the sword. Under huge pressure from Lawman's massive crossbows, Boomer builds a bargain bin French castle to prevent Lawman from advancing any further from the north and west. Before Lawman can switch his attack to the south, Boomer bangs down another castle, sealing off that entry point and protecting his vital resources. Boomer capitalizes on the lull in the battle by getting to Imperial Edge before Lawman has even clicked up. 3 stables spring up near Boomer's southern castle. The power of the French cavalry would soon be seen on the battlefield unless Lawman could cut off the production at its heart. Slowly, Lawman's advantage starts to slip as his army cannot find a way in, and Boomer begins to build up his crushing cavalry force. The cavalry units charge the crossbows, who retreat to the safety of some houses at their backs, but they can't stop the inevitable and are wiped out. Now, in even greater numbers, the cavalry charge forward into Lawman's base and annihilate the helpless defenders. Lawman's lifeline back into the Blender Cup ends in a crushing defeat. He has to win game 2, or he faces the shame of being knocked out twice. Lawman picks Acropolis for game 2, hoping to bring his experience from earlier victories to secure him the vital win. Lawman picks Magyars to utilise the excellent attack strength of their scouts and their exceptional cavalry archers. But Lawman's plan has one fatal flaw. He wasn't counting on Boomer picking the same civilization. It's a story we've seen on Acropolis before. A race to feudal age and a race to get your scouts out before your opponent can. They both trade scouts in small skirmishes before Lawman finds a crack in Boomer's fortifications. Lawman's scouts rush into Boomer's base, but waiting spears are there to welcome the cavalry with pointy sticks. After both players fail to make any significant headway with their scouts, they both rush the castle edge. Lawman invests in ranges and his much beloved cavalry archers, while on the other side of the map, Boomer puts all his eggs in a basket shaped like a knight. The knight basket. The knights barrel into Lawman's base and leave a trail of horizontal villagers in their wake. Lawman rallies his cavalry archers and hunts the knights out of his base. The cavalry archers split into smaller groups and stalk the map for villagers and any weaknesses. Lawman's cavalry archer numbers grow and grow as more come running out of his 3 archery ranges. They poke and prod Boomer's base until they eventually find their way in, but are forced into a tactical retreat to regroup and once more consolidate their numbers. Boomer builds up his knights as quickly as possible to take on the surging cavalry archers. 24 knights go forward to support villagers constructing a castle in the hopes of securing and protecting the centre of the map where he has a town centre. But while the mice are away, the cavalry archers murder everyone. The knights pull back and rout the cavalry archers from Boomer's base. Now the cavalry archer numbers have swollen to 45. Have you ever had a swollen tongue? I bit my tongue once mistaking it for a chalk ice, and you wouldn't believe the size of it. Or else I ate a huge bee. I can't really remember. Both armies are tense as they wait for Imperial Age to come through. The cavalry archers attack and whittle down the knight numbers. Once in Imperial Age, Lawman and his cavalry archers stand confidently by the trebuchets as they batter Boomer's castle. Without warning, Lawman attacks on multiple fronts all at once. Cavalry archers and light cavalry attack in monumental numbers. Boomer defiantly roars as Lawman takes game 2. The comeback is on. I don't have any notes for game 3, but Lawman won it and he heads into the quarterfinals. Lawman rockets into the quarterfinals, but one player intent on derailing this rocket. Yes, I know you can't derail a rocket, right? But I have work in the morning, so we're going with derailed. Okay, fine. How about this? Lawman trains into the quarterfinals, but one player intent on derailing this train was Liam Basher, a bare-knuckle boxer who turned to AoE after entering the Witness Protection Program. Note to editor, remove this sentence, very, very important. Game 1, as always, on Arabia. Liam Basher selected Lithuanians and their powerful knights to take on Lawmen, who went with melee, another first for Lawmen in the tournament. Liam opened with a Dark Age Rush Gambit, cool as X-Men, sending militiamen into Lawman's base to cause as much disruption as possible. But Lawman walled up his wood lines to protect his villagers. Aggressive plays from Liam Basher knocked Lawman off his berries. Not letting up, Liam Basher sends in scouts to double down on the effective attack. Man-at-arms now in his base, Lawman slaps down an archery range and sends out archers to deal with the invaders. The scout attack is fierce and drives Lawman off his goal before setting their sights on villagers in the woodline. Lawman is left with no choice and garrisons his villagers in the town centre, abandoning the essential woodline. Finally able to get a reasonable amount of spears out to fight the scouts, Lawman does his best to push the army back. More villagers fall to the scouts as Lawman tries to reclaim the woodlines. He sends a group of archers forward to attack, but Liam has a nasty surprise waiting for him when skirmishers, the killer of all archers, pop out of the range in his base and kill the forward party. Lawman is left with no army and nowhere to go. Game 1 goes to Liam Basher, who outplayed and outmaneuvered the Irishmen. Game 2, Arena. Lawman selects Arena as the map for Game 2. Maybe he wanted to make sure he had pre-made walls to stymie Liam Basher's early aggressive tactics. In Arena, both players start with their town centre and resources surrounded by walls. The most common approach to this map is for castles to get to players as fast as possible. Wait, that made no sense. Lawman picks Burgundians. Lawman picks Burgunds. Lawman picks the Burgs, one of the newest civilization additions to AoE, while Liam Basher goes for the Teutons, who were recently voted best civ for Arena by readers of the popular AoE magazine Flaming Camel. Both go to castle as quickly as expected, where both players put down second town centres. Mirroring each other once more, Lawman and Liam Basher put down monasteries to produce monks to go out and grab some relics. Relics generate gold, but also they generate peace of mind. Lawman places a third town centre and then a fourth. He doesn't produce any military. This is a risky move and a strange one. On the other side of the map, Liam Basher moves to stone to build up enough resources for a castle. Liam brings home an impressive 4 relics from his monk adventures, while Lawman only gets 1 safely back to his monastery. Lawman's economy is looking strange at this stage in the game. He has invested heavily in ham, 44 villagers, wood, 28 villagers, but he only has 3 on gold. Liam Basher sends knights to attack Lawman's walls, but Lawman has monks waiting to scare them off with the threat of conversions. Lawman now has a significant villager lead, 104 to 85, but there is still no sign of his military. Lawman places a 5th town centre. Was he playing Team Hospital? Oh no, wait, no, I meant to say, was he playing Farm Sim? It doesn't matter. Liam Basher powers into the Imperial Age with Lawman only halfway there. At just over 30 minutes, Lawman has 8 town centres vomiting out villagers at an alarming rate. Liam Basher's hulking army rolls towards Lawman's base, boasting halbs, trebuchets and mangonels with castles at their backs. And then Lawman shows his cards in all their glory. The rarely seen Flemish militia, with the bonus technology of Burgundians, 200 villagers instantly turn into a colossal army of Flemish militia and spread across the map like armoured termites. They eat Liam Basher's forward army and turn his castle to dust. Production buildings fall at their feet as they infest Liam Basher's forward base and erase all of his map control. The last castle before the outer walls crumbles to the ground as Lawman booms back up to 50 villagers. Nothing can stop the Flemish death wave. 2-handed swordsmen rush out to defend against the unstoppable force, but they are swept away into the fires of hell. Rams and trebuchets add to the destruction as the walls fall, and as the walls come down, so do the curtains to Game 2. Lawman wins with a strategy no one expected. Can he do the same in game? Can he do the same to win the series in Game 3? Game 3, Acropolis. Well, look where we are, Acropolis. The old reliable. Liam Basher potentially playing into the hands of Lawman by selecting this favourable map for the scout and cavalry archer master. But with such an open map, Liam Basher's aggressive style and playing as the formidable Berbers will be something to be reckoned with. Scouts fly out of each base and begin their attack, while spearmen on both sides do their best to prevent the deaths of their villager brethren. Scout and spear battles break out all over their respective sphere of influence. My sphere of influence is this football I throw at people when they don't agree with me. Lawman keeps up the scout aggression as Liam Basher heads into the castle age. The scout attacks become more and more damaging as Lawman ups the aggression. Lawman's scouts cause havoc in the south of Liam Basher's base, taking and driving the villagers off gold and forcing other off farms and into the town centres to safety. Liam Basher reaches castle age and starts to produce knights as Lawman just clicks up to castle age. But Lawman's scouts are constantly looking for more kills, and they find plenty of them in a gang of villagers building a town centre to the southwest of Liam Basher's base. Knights, spears, genitors and camels try to turn the tide of the battle by attacking Lawman at home, but they are quickly repelled by spears. Lawman's scouts return to the forward town centre below the western slope and kill villagers and clear them from their farms and woodlines. As Liam tries to chase and kill the scouts in his base, he sends forward camels to deliver some sort of damage to Lawman. Cavalry archers spring into action and beat back the camel bandits before they return for more villager kills. Lawman uses his town centre for cover for his cavalry archers, forcing the camels to retreat. The eastern base is again cleared by scouts, where the surviving villagers once more take refuge in the town centre. The scout attack is relentless, and the town centres are useless against the pierced armour of these scouts. Lawman has taken a commanding lead in villagers with 70 to 44 at minute 35. More light cavalry stream into Liam Basher's base and bring his production and economy to a standstill. There are no more options left for Liam Basher. He concedes the fight and Lawman takes the series, and he's in to the semi-finals against Fiddlevlad. They've got Lawman. On the morning of the semi-finals, I received that message from an unknown number. Truth be told, I ignored it, but an hour after receiving the message, Smith called me to say that he couldn't get in contact with Lawman. Maybe Lawman had slept in, maybe he had his phone on silent, but the more I made excuses, the more I knew something was wrong. I could feel it in my waters. I replied to the message I received earlier that morning. Who are they? The Hobgoblins. I stumbled back from my phone and acted like I was fainting even though I wasn't. But then I started thinking about fainting even more and I thought I was actually going to faint, so I sat down. This was bad. Really bad. Let's take a step back for a second. AoE is dominated by two factions, the Hobgoblins and the Golden Alliance. The Hobgoblins are anarchy and the Golden Alliance, they are order. Both groups believe they should be the decision makers of the Age of Empires world and everything in it. A couple of years ago, when the fighting between these two factions got out of complete control, they both agreed to only fight each other at a monthly sanctioned event, the Slobber Knocker. If the Hobgoblins had taken the Lawmen, then this meant two things. One, they had broken the agreement with the Golden Alliance, which would mean all-out war. And two, they were afraid Lawmen was going to win. The Hobgoblins were ruthless, but kidnapping a player? This was a new low even for them, or a new high if you ask the Hobgoblin. You see, the biggest downfall of the Hobgoblins though is they are loyal to no one, not even their own faction when it suits them, and they hate losing. 20 Grannies was a legend in the Hobgoblins and a nightmare for the Golden Alliance. He was actually disqualified in the first round of the Blender Cup, and something told me he would be looking for revenge. Any revenge. If there was anyone who knew where the Lawman was being kept, it was going to be 20 Grannies.
Stranger away.
20 Grannies. Where are the Hobgoblins hiding Lawman?
Me not care.
You're gonna care if Fiddlevlad wins and becomes leader of the Hobgoblins. No more nice dungeon for 20 Grannies.
You snake, sneaky man. Stinky lawman in Hobgoblin dungeon. The big dungeon.
Now, how do you get a man out of a Hobgoblin dungeon? What group of people would be insane enough to go to the Hobgoblins' headquarters? Well, I messaged Triptychs, one of the Golden Alliance council members. Why Triptychs? Well, he'd been knocked out of the Blender Cup in the quarterfinals by the unstoppable slime OG Virtuoso, who just happens to be a Hobgoblin. And with only Hobgoblins left in the Blender Cup, I had a feeling Triptychs would be more than happy to help. I told him that the Hobgoblins were keeping Lawman in their dungeon. Moments later, I got a message from JP Does That, the High King of the Golden Alliance. We're gonna get your boy back. 15 minutes before the game was meant to start, I got the call from Smith. Lawman was back. The Hobgoblins had kept him for nearly 24 hours. Strangely, Smith told me, the Hobgoblins put up no fight when the Golden Alliance came knocking. They just let the Lawmen go. Now, if there's one thing I know, it's that the Hobgoblins only do something when it benefits themselves. And then it hit me. They didn't want the Lawmen disqualified for not showing up for the game. They wanted the Lawmen tired, hungry, and unprepared so they could win the game. It would all look legitimate, and there wouldn't be a thing we could do. The semi-finals, Fiddlevlad vs Lawman. The semi-finals are a much bigger challenge than the earlier rounds. The games are increased from a best of 3 to a grueling best of 5. A sleep-deprived Lawman would have to play a minimum of 3 and possibly 5 games against one of the best and most ruthless players in the world, Fiddlevlad. Lawman picked Bulgarians for game 1. Now, you would be a fool not to open with man-at-arms when you're playing as Bulgarians due to their juicy militia line bonuses. Fiddlevlad chose Khmer and started pushing out scouts. Spears ran out to fight the scouts in Lawman's stronghold and managed to take one down. Luckily for Lawman, the men-at-arms managed to break into Fiddlevlad's base and drive the villagers from the gold, while sending some of them to Valhalla. The town centre, the greatest enemy of all men-at-arms, lured them in and slaughtered the attackers where they stood. Fiddlevlad's scouts pushed towards Lawman's base, where they engaged in a battle with the enemy units, but were cut down mercilessly. Lawman added skirms to his army to deal with Fiddlevlad's archers and force Fiddlevlad to retreat. Lawman pressed the attack on the gates of Fiddlevlad's base, but was unable to make a way into the base and was again repelled by Fiddlevlad and his devious army. Fiddlevlad again tried to counterattack with scouts and archers, but the scouts are massacred and the archers turn and flee. Fiddlevlad reaches Castle Age before Lawman has even clicked up, giving him a small window to cause significant damage. He brings out knights and scorpions in a bid to crush Lawman's feudal army. Using the range of the scorpions, Fiddlevlad attacks Lawman's villagers and swoops in with his knights to clear Lawman's army. Castle Age comes in just in time for Lawman, and he quickly upgrades his spearmen to night-killing pikes. As Fiddlevlad applies more pressure to the production buildings with mangonel fire, Lawman bypasses Fiddlevlad's army and attacks his base instead. The scorpions give chase while the knights raid in the south of the base before being pushed back by Lawman's defensive force of pikes. Meanwhile, Lawman's forward army turns to ash. Fiddlevlad, sensing an opportunity to cause irreversible damage, pushes his scorpion and knight attack, which is quickly dealt a considerable blow when Lawman squares a mangonel shot right into the scorpions. The pikes clean up the rest of the scorpions as the knights are forced to run home. In a hope to turn the battle, Lawman invests into a staggering amount of monks to finish off the knights. He converts the siege workshop to cut off production of the scorpions, but just as Lawman is able to regroup, Fiddlevlad reaches Imperial Age and lays down multiple archery ranges. Arbalest come flooding out of Fiddlevlad's base, and he deftly kills 4 mangonels before taking out 10 monks in cold blood. The battle is lost, and so is Game 1 for the Lawman. For Game 2's map choice, Lawman selects Oasis, a map with a donut of trees and a useless hole in the middle. Much like a donut, except they are not filled with water, but then some are mixed with jelly, so maybe not that different at all. I love donuts. Anyway, Lawman picks the double town centre making, cavalry spamming Cumans as the perfect complement to this map. Fiddlevlad goes with the fearsome Mongols and their powerful horse arrow firing Mangudai. Like clockwork, Lawman lays down his second town centre at minute 10. Fiddlevlad opens with scouts and begins to flood Lawman's base with attacks. Lawman was in the town centre construction workers to prevent them from being killed by the aggressive scouts. Fiddlevlad, hoping to end the game early, jockeys for more villager kills, but Lawman utilises his town centre arrow fire and walls excellently to prevent a wipeout. The 2 town centres give Lawman a commanding 10 villager lead as Fiddlevlad clicks up to castle, and as soon as Fiddlevlad gets to Castle Age, he slaps down a castle, eager to get his best units out on the field. Lawman makes it to Castle Age and lays down 3 stables where knights begin flowing out. 16 knights make for Fiddlevlad's stronghold just as Mangudai are on the attack. The Mangudai retreat to form a defence against the invading force. The knights knights are too strong and attacking in multiple areas, and they eventually break through the walls and into Fiddlevlad's base. The knights drive villagers off farms and take many lives. They are finally dispatched by Mangudai and Castlefire. Fiddlevlad reaches Imperial Age while Lawman is only halfway there. Nearly 25 Mangudai harass a large group of knights as they double back to their base. Reinforcements arrive for Fiddlevlad and he is able to push back the now retreating knights. Suddenly, 47 retreating knights become 47 attacking cavaliers and chase the Mangudai all along the woodline, but they still cannot match the ferocious attacking power of the Mangudai and are forced to take the lonely road home again. Finally, the cavaliers turn into paladins and attack at speed, driving Fiddlevlad's main army into the walls of his base. Fiddlevlad tries to get a castle up to stop the push, but the paladins prove too strong. They smash down the walls and cause untold damage to Fiddlevlad's economy. Villager numbers for Fiddlevlad plummet to under 30, while Lawman sits pretty on 60. In an attempt to close out the game, Lawman sends light cavalry streaming into Fiddlevlad's base, but they are slaughtered by Castlefire. Fiddlevlad leads a last-ditch attack with a powerful Mangudai charge on the southern walls of Lawman's base. Defending light cavalry are shredded as the Mangudai break through and into Lawman's economy. They take out many villagers before they are eventually corralled, overwhelmed and destroyed. After losing numerous trebuchets to Fiddlevlad's defences, Lawman finally destroys Fiddlevlad's western castle and his light cavalry spill in. The base is cleared, and with one town centre left and in flames, Fiddlevlad concedes the game. Lawman takes game 2, while Fiddlevlad plots revenge. Fiddlevlad picks Arena for game 3 and chooses Aztecs as his weapon. Lawman picks Burgundians, and we all know what Lawman is capable of doing with Burgundians. In game 2 of the semi-finals, Lawman unleashed the Flemish militia, sending 200 villagers to pulverise Liam Basher and his base. Will he do the same to Fiddlevlad? Both players speed up to Castle Age while scouting the map for relics. Once he hits Castle Age, Fiddlevlad builds a monastery and siege workshop right outside the walls of his base. His Eagle Scouts guard the relics on the map as the monks collect and bring the relics back to the monastery. With 2 relics forward, he sends mangonels, rams and eagles charging into Lawman's front gates. Lawman accelerates into Imperial Age with a time of 22 minutes, immediately researching chemistry to unlock his lethal gunpowder units. Rams, monks, mangonels and Eagle Scouts hammer down Lawman's walls and enter his base, hungry for villagers. They meet heavy resistance from Lawman's devastating bombard cannons and hang cannoneers. Fiddlevlad lays down archery ranges and produces crossbows and eagles to take out the deadly cannon units. Picking and sniping slow and unguarded units, Fiddlevlad takes every opportunity to take the advantage. The crossbows and monks overpower Lawman's army and begin targeting the defenceless villagers. Somehow Lawman manages to fight back and push them out of his base, but Fiddlevlad reaches Imperial Age and nullifies Lawman's advantage. Fiddlevlad upgrades to Arbalest and takes out Lawman's remaining army. This time there is no way back for the Lawman. Game 3 goes to Fiddlevlad. Lawman chooses Malians and the map Golden Swamp for Game 4. Fiddlevlad also goes with Malians. Golden Swamp is a map with a centre of gold surrounded by traversable water. If the game goes late, the centre gold will be crucial in winning the game. Fiddlevlad attacks with a militia rush in Dark Age and targets Lawman's fishing boats, destroying them all and severely setting back Lawman's economy. Both players rocket up to Feudal Age. Fiddlevlad places a second dock while Lawman sends out a galley to deal with the enemy scout and militia. Wanting to take control of the water, Fiddlevlad sends out fire ships to attack Lawman's docks and sink the galley harassing his villagers. Lawman reaches Castle Age before Fiddlevlad and quickly starts creating knights from 2 stables. The knights move to attack Fiddlevlad's walls and find a way in. Fiddlevlad catches up, reaching Castle Age just as some of the knights find a way into his base. He sends out camels to annihilate the invading knights. Making his move on the centre gold island, Fiddlevlad plants a town centre right in the middle, with his camels standing guard. Fiddlevlad, taking advantage of the new map control, sends his camels into Lawman's base while putting down a forward dock and siege workshop. Lawman, sensing an impending attack, switches villagers to stone to get the resources for a defensive castle. Lawman also goes out with knights to contest the island and crush the villagers, but they are cut off by heavy fire from ships, camels and monks. While Lawman attempts to wrestle the center island away from Fiddlevlad, Fiddlevlad keeps reinforcing the area with more and more troops. Lawman, desperate to regain control, places a very aggressive castle on the center island, but has to retreat when he sees how heavily fortified it is. Fiddlevlad immediately builds a castle in the center island and further cements his control over the vital resources. Switching the attack plan, Fiddlevlad drives villagers from Lawman's precarious front gold with mangonels and war galleys. Using the stone he collected, Lawman rushes to put up a castle, which he gets up just in time to take back his front gold. Both players get to Imperial Age within seconds of each other, where Lawman sends out scores of light cav to raid Fiddlevlad's base. The light cavalry are quickly cut down by a group of marauding knights and camels on the east side of the base. Both players upgrade to Cavalier at roughly the same time. 44 minutes gone into the game and Lawman leads in villagers 119 to 95. Fiddlevlad's cavalry attacks on the east side of Lawman's base and are beginning to turn the battle. They deny a castle and run on to knock down a town centre and slaughter an incredible amount of villagers. But just as soon as Fiddlevlad takes a bite out of Lawman's economy, Lawman runs riot in Fiddlevlad's base, with cavalry taking out countless villagers. Lawman manages to clear up attacking cavalry at home with some cavalry of his own. Eventually, Fiddlevlad is able to do the same in his base. Fiddlevlad tries another head-on attack by setting his trebuchet on Lawman's castle. A heavy camel guard protects the trebuchet as it chips away at the essential defensive castle. Suddenly, pikemen pour out of Lawman's base and clear up the enemy units that have slipped in. Villagers do their best to keep the castle from falling, but the damage is too severe, and with one last attack, it crumbles to the ground. Fiddlevlad's groups of cavalry hunt down villagers in the south of the map, preventing a town centre from being built. Lawman's pikes are able to destroy the trebuchet and camels outside his base. Seeing the power of the pikes, Fiddlevlad produces some of his own. Lawman's villagers plummet to 68, while Fiddlevlad has 79. Both pike forces engage in a massive battle outside Lawman's base. Cavalry swoop in for Lawman and turn the tide in his favour. Before Fiddlevlad can reinforce the line, his pikes and trebuchets are decimated. Without warning, because it would be silly to warn the enemy, Lawman sets a group of rams on the centre island and their buildings, the castle their first target. Fiddlevlad manages to beat back the first wave of pikemen with his own pikes. Lawman's attack is bolstered by the addition of Geppettos, who mow down the pikemen, while the rams hammer on the castle walls. Fiddlevlad runs out of stone, which he needs to repair the castle, and with repeated attacks, the castle is lost, and with it, Fiddlevlad's hold on the centre island and its resources. The pikemen and rams focus their ire on the town centre and quickly raze it to the ground. Lawman acts quickly and establishes his own town centre and castle on the centre island, securing, for the first time in the game, all the resources. Lawman takes heavy losses taking the centre island, but with the help of his Geppettos, manages to hold. Bombard cannons arrive to destroy Lawman's new castle, but Lawman presses his advantage by focusing on getting troops into Fiddlevlad's base to completely destroy his economy. Fiddlevlad's hunters continue to knock out large groups of villagers, but pikes are now overrunning Fiddlevlad's base as trebuchets knock down the defensive castles and production buildings. Fiddlevlad's base is in ruins, and flames shoot from every building. With an unstoppable push, Lawman has crushed the spirit of his enemy. Lawman wins Game 4. Whoever wins the next game is going to the Blender Cup final. Fiddlevlad picks Four Lakes for the map for Game 5. He selects Malay to help him book his spot in the final, a powerful fishing civilization that can race to the next age. Lawman chooses his mighty Byzantines. As is tradition on Four Lakes, both players put down docks in their respective ponds to take advantage of that fat winter salmon. Fiddlevlad and Lawman both begin walling off, but Fiddlevlad extends his walls way out to prevent Lawman from sneaking a dock in his pond and taking it over. Fiddlevlad takes out Lawman's scout as he finishes his impressive walls. Lawman opens with scouts and marches forward, attacking Fiddlevlad all along his extensive walls. Fiddlevlad responds by building houses behind the palisades to prevent the scouts from breaking in, but he hasn't noticed that he has left a gap behind the wall. The scouts destroy the palisades and rush in through the gap, attacking the villagers. Archers come to the rescue of the villagers, but 2 of the archers are killed in the ensuing action. A spear comes out to deal with the scouts, but he is killed along with a villager. The archers eventually track down the scouts and send them to horsey heaven. Lawman clicks up to Castle Age as Fiddlevlad secures his pond in the east. Fiddlevlad, committed now to archers, clicks up to Castle and keeps producing archers in the transition. When Lawman reaches Castle Age, he produces knights and skirmishers to counter Fiddlevlad's archers. As soon as he has enough numbers, Lawman sends his army forward and attacks Fiddlevlad head on. Fiddlevlad gets to Castle Age and immediately clicks up to Imperial Age, revealing his secret plan. As he waits for Imperial Age to come through, he keeps the knights at bay with crossbows behind his walls. As soon as Fiddlevlad gets to Imperial Age, he upgrades his crossbows to arbalest and makes his move, rushing his troops forward. Fiddlevlad tries to attack as soon as possible while he has the advantage in the age difference. The arbalests are stopped in their tracks by well-armed knights and elite skirms posted on a hill outside Lawman's base. The arbalests are outnumbered and are quickly pushed back to Fiddlevlad's base, where they are wiped off the map. Desperately trying to secure a second gold mine for his arbalest production, Fiddlevlad begins building a town centre, but the villagers are set upon by war-crazed skirmishers. The arbalests manage to push Lawman off Fiddlevlad's front walls, and Fiddlevlad pushes with his army forward. Unfortunately, the arbalests are too few and are stopped once again by more knights and skirms. Reversing the push once again, Lawman attacks Fiddlevlad's base and marches in. The town centre, stacked with arbalests, takes out most of the invading force, but some of the enemy troops manage to slip by and start causing damage in the base. With most of Lawman's strike force killed, Fiddlevlad goes forward again, this time with a mangonel in support to handle the skirmisher, but it's the same result. The arbalests are all killed, and the mangonel is killed easily too. Fiddlevlad secretly places 5 stables in the east of his base and launches a sizable light cavalry attack. They attack the knight and skirmisher group, trying to take them out. They are easily cut down by Lawman's forces. Lawman reaches Imperial Age with the villager lead of 99 to 76. Fiddlevlad sends in another light cavalry attack to clear the skirms. The skirmishers split from the knights and the enemy light cavalry take chase. It's short-lived momentum for Fiddlevlad though, as the knights swoop in and take out the light cavalry. The larger group of knights run to the arbalests and encircle them. They are all destroyed, and so is Fiddlevlad. Lawman is going to the final. Jacob Chip versus the Lawmen. Game 1, as always, Arabia. Lawman chose the powerful infantry civilization, Slavs, while Jacob went with the Huns, or as I like to call them, the ones who always kill me with cavalry archers because I forget about them every single time I play Huns. Both players speed up to feud within seconds of each other and drop stables. They also send out spears to defend their bases to deal with the incoming scouts. Scouts attack in both bases, but Jacob Chip manages to attack more effectively with his horsey boys. As Jacob Chip clicks up to Castle Age, his villagers lay down 3 archery ranges. Remember that thing I said about cavalry archers? They're coming! Just before Lawman clicks up to Castle Age, he lays down another stable. When Jacob Chip reaches Castle Age, he sends his cavalry archers marching forward to harass and attack the villagers in Lawman's base. The cavalry archers, supported by scouts, break into the base. They head straight for the northern woodlines, driving Lawman's villagers away before sprinting east and killing the defending spearmen. Lawman pumps out knights and builds up their numbers before attacking the cavalry archers running wild in his base. The cavalry archers run to the east side of Lawman's base, but are trapped by some quick thinking from Lawman, and his knights clear them all. But before Lawman can regroup, more cavalry archers break in from the west and drive the villagers from the gold, while taking some kills in the process. The knights manage to chase the cavalry archers from the base, but they soon return, now in even greater numbers. The knights try to provoke Jacob Chip into a fight, but he doesn't engage and returns home. After building up his forces to even greater numbers, Jacob Chip's army darts forward to the unguarded east side of Lawman's base and kills the villagers on the woodline. Supporting his cavalry archers with pikemen, Jacob Chip takes the fight to Lawman's knights, who have tried to launch a counterattack. Jacob Chip's army turns and leaves the knights to roam free in his base. They are heading to Lawman's base now, hoping to deliver the killer blow. The knights attacking Jacob Chip are eventually killed by cavalry archer, and town centre fire. Meanwhile, a large group of cavalry archers have broken into Lawman's base, and they take out as many villagers as possible and deny a town centre from going up. Under Scorpion fire, Jacob Chip retreats to preserve his army and clicks to Imperial Age. He places a defensive castle to secure gold and stone outside his base. Lawman, sensing all the windows of opportunities closing, presses forward with knights, with Scorpion supporting from the rear. He tries to draw Jacob Chip into a major confrontation, but Jacob Chip is happy to stay under the protection of his castle. As Lawman reaches Imperial Age, Jacob Chip reinforces his large army with the building-destroying Tarkans from the castle. Both armies clash outside Lawman's base, but the Tarkans and cavalry archers combination is too powerful for the defending knights and scorpions. After the battle, Lawman has no army, while Jacob still has 30 cavalry archers standing strong. While more reinforcements flood in, Lawman knows the game is lost and concedes. Game 1 of the final of Blender Cup goes to the unstoppable Jacob Chip. Lawman picks 4 lakes as the map for Game 2, coupled with Persians as his civilization to take advantage with their dock work rate bonus. Jacob Chip, on the other hand, goes with the Burgundians, Burgs, and their Castle Age Cavaliers. Jacob Chip docks his pond, which is on the right hand side of his town centre. Lawman docks his pond, which lies in the safer spot, right behind his town centre. Walls spring up around Jacob Chip's base and dock to stop Lawman from sneaking docks into his pond and taking it over. Both players reach feudal age and open with scouts. Lawman travels north with 2 villagers to take over an additional pond. A battle breaks out in the southern pond as both players contest its waters. Jacob Chip wins out with his fireships and takes control of the pond, but scouts get into Jacob Chip's base and begin disrupting his eco as spears and scouts try to chase them off. He expands his control of the ponds by sneaking a dock into the northern pond and takes it over with fireships, killing Lawman's fishing ships. Both players click up the castle at the same time in a very close game, but Jacob Chip now controls 3 out of the 4 ponds on the map, massively boosting his food reserves. Once Lawman hits Castle Age, he starts producing knights, while Jacob produced cavaliers thanks to his Burgundian bonus. The knights break in through a hole near the berries in Jacob Chip's base. They run in and clear waiting cavaliers before targeting the villagers. More knights and camels come in to support Lawman's army, but they have to find a new way in, and they do, on the west side, breaking down the walls. While Jacob Chip tries to build up his cavalry numbers to fight back, the enemy break into a woodline and slaughter the villagers. Jacob Chip manages to take out some of Lawman's army, but they keep being reinforced and he struggles to keep them at bay. Not long after, the base is overrun with knights and Jacob Chip's eco is now in ruins. The end comes when Lawman brings his villagers forward and drops a castle in range of Jacob Chip's town centre. Game 2 is over and everything is all square going into Game 3 of the Blender Cup final. Game 3, bitches! Sorry, no, it's too much. Game 3 is on the map Acropolis. Lawman sends out spearmen and stations them at the most vulnerable parts of his base to keep guard. Frustrated by the lack of killing, Jacob changes his attack to the lumber camp at the back of Lawman's base, but his scouts run directly into the waiting spears. A villager rushes forward and towers the woodline while the scouts break in and take out the villagers. Lawman abandons the lumber camp and the surviving villagers retreat to the safety of the main base. Spearmen are sent out to deal with the tower before Lawman drops 2 archery ranges in the back of his base. Both players click up to castle at the same time. Jacob Chip keeps up his attacks with his scouts, but Lawman's spears keep them at bay. As soon as Lawman hits Castle Age, he starts producing his beloved cavalry archers out of 3 archery ranges. To counter this, Jacob Chip starts producing camels and skirms. A small group of cavalry archers press forward and are chased off by the defending scouts and camels. Taking the fight to Lawman, Jacob Chip breaks off a group of camels and finds a woodline of villagers ripe for the cameling. Spears jump into action and fight off the camels before they can inflict serious damage. The small forward group of cavalry archers are suddenly killed entering Jacob Chip's base in the north. Camels and scouts come back to finish the job on the villagers in the lumber camp outside Lawman Lawman's base. On the other side of the map, more cavalry archers attempt to break into Jacob Chip's base, but the camels and skirms hold the line and prevent the invaders gaining entry. Then the cavalry archers swoop in at the north of the base and they manage to break in. They quickly take out some villagers before they are surrounded and encircled and killed by skirmishers and camels. 34 minutes into the game, Jacob Chip begins to pull away in villagers, leading 48 to 35. A band of camels return again to the woodline where they previously did so much damage, but run headlong into a town centre with cavalry archers and pikes firing at their back. Quickly pulling back from the town centre, they focus their fire on Lawman's army and push him back into his base. Their numbers start to dwindle from the battles, and unfortunately they lose their attacking momentum. Aiming to seize control of the vital central resources, Lawman constructs a town centre to secure one of the goals up for grabs. In tandem with the land grab, 20 cavalry archers race forward into Jacob Chip's base and run down the villagers. The cavalry archers continue to attack and pick off villagers, frustrating Jacob Chip's economic development. Jacob Chip clicks the Imperial Age first, but he struggles to control the cavalry archers and their constant attacks on his villagers. Lawman leaves a large number of villagers unguarded in the north, and Jacob Chip's army take full advantage before a large group of cavalry archers swoop in and send them packing. The harassment and raiding of Jacob Chip's economy steps up a gear when Lawman brings light cavalry onto the battlefield. Lawman cavalry archers' attacks have given him a 22 villager lead on the 1 hour mark. 53 fully upgraded cavalry archers fire arrows of flames on, well, everything. The brave elite skirms are wiped out together with their camels. Over 60 battle-hardened cavalry archers rush toward Jacob Chip's base, and there's nothing that can stop them. Jacob Chip throws in the towel. Game 3 goes to Lawman. Game 4, Arena. Arena, the land of weird and wonderful strategies. Lawman takes Bergs, which we all know what he can do when he has a spare 200 villagers. Jacob Chip goes with Sicilians and their Dijon towers. I don't think that's what the towers are called, but I forgot to look it up. Both go fast castle. This is the way. And both build monasteries as soon as they get to Castle Age, and send monks and troops outside their walls to try and bring home relics for that sweet, sweet gold boost. And then Jacob Chip does the unthinkable. A siege tower floats out of Jacob Chip's base with villagers running beside it. Surely not in the final. No one would be bold enough to pull this off in the final, but there it was, the little siege tower that could, chugging along to the walls of Lawman's base, priming itself to launch half a dozen villagers into the unknown. The siege tower hits the walls and the villagers are launched over. It's mayhem. The villagers get to work as soon as they land, somehow none of them receiving life-threatening injuries from the fall. Obviously, these villagers have trained for this day. They quickly start constructing a castle. Lawman sounds the alarm in his base and knights rush to kill the villagers before the castle goes up. The town centre helps the knights' cause by taking out some of the villagers with arrow fire. Villagers pile in to help Lawman and attack the castle, but the invaders won't be stopped and the castle stands tall. As soon as the castle is built, Jacob Chip targets the walls with exploding petards to let his forces in. Knights come in to help the push while the castle fires on the town centre. Lawman is forced to abandon that town centre, but his villagers are killed by castle fires before they can escape. Dijon towers, definitely not called Dijon towers, spring up around the castle to secure their advanced position, while Lawman sends out knights to rebuff the incoming sergeant attacks. Before long, cavaliers and rams begin fighting back the invaders and knocking their forward buildings down. Taking out some eco-insurance, Lawman builds a town centre on the northern woodline outside his base and away from the fighting. The first tower falls, and then the second. The foundations of the castle start to shake as the rams and cavaliers throw all their weight into attacking it. The castle falls at 32 minutes, and now Jacob Chip is on the back foot. Lawman pushes out his base and destroys the stable sitting outside. Carrying his momentum forward, Lawman marches on Jacob Chip's gates with cavaliers and rams. Towers spring up in Jacob Chip's base to stop a full invasion. Monks also support the defence of the base by converting some of Lawman's units. Meanwhile, Lawman is steadily building up his villager numbers and has taken the lead in villagers 98 to 95. Cavaliers find a way into Jacob Chip's base and take out as many villagers as possible. The defending monks try to stop the onslaught, but they are killed too. The rams push in and focus their attack on the town centre. Jacob Chip hastily constructs a castle to stop the attackers flooding in from the front of the base. Lawman builds a 5th town centre as he makes his way to Imperial Age. In one last attempt to save his Blender Cup dreams, Jacob Chip activates the Last Crusade, and Sergeant starts spilling out of his town centres to repel Lawman's attacking forces in the west, but they cannot hold Lawman's troops and are wiped out. They are beaten, and so is the mighty Jacob Chip. Game 4 goes to Lawman, and so does the Blender Cup. I never heard from Lawman after that. Never saw him enter any other tournament. Never saw him play another game. But I hope his win in the Blender Cup gave him whatever he was looking for. And I hope he knows what he gave us.